Welcome to the Jake Soul Podcast. On today's episode, my guest is Mike Rhodes. Mike is the editor-in-chief of the Muncie Journal. Mike, welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
First off, I got to thank you for the music you sent me to use as my intro music. As my listeners have listened on the first few episodes, I had no intro music. I hadn't got to it yet, and I met with you. We talked about being on the podcast, and you said you need intro music, make it sound more professional. And I think that day you sent me music.
Yeah, I think so.
And it was music you created, you composed.
Right. I'm glad you used it, and it was suitable for your use.
It fits real well. It's kind of upbeat, and I just like the fact that someone local made it. And so, first off, thank you very much for
you're very welcome.
allowing me to do that.
Thank you.
Now, are you from Muncie?
No, I'm not. I'm actually, I was born in West Virginia, Bridgeport, West Virginia. And my dad's a minister, so an American Baptist minister. And we kind of traveled as I was growing up quite a bit from state to state. So we started in West Virginia. Then my family moved to Kansas City, Kansas. That was my dad's first pastorate. And then we moved to Baser, Kansas. And then we moved to Golly Bridge, West Virginia. Let's see. And then one other move they made. And then ended up in Indianapolis when I was in high school.
What was it like growing up / traveling all over the eastern half of the U.S.?
I love West Virginia. We go back frequently to visit and experience West Virginia.
It's such a beautiful state.
It's beautiful. In the town of Golly Bridge, where I used to live, that's kind of been a mecca now for whitewater rafting. There is a large festival there once a year where they close the Fayetteville Bridge down, which is the largest spanning arch bridge in the eastern half of the United States, and they do base jumping off of there all day.
Oh, jeez.
So we go there. It's a beautiful state. There's a lot of poverty there, and I've been disappointed the last couple times that we've been there because some of the things are you see the poverty, but some of the beauty of the state isn't being kept up like it used to be. There used to be very scenic overlooks, and now they're overgrown and that kind of thing. So it's kind of disappointing. Beautiful area, love it, love the people.
How does it compare to like living here in Indiana?
I miss the mountains.
It's flat here.
Yeah, it's flat here. But no, Muncie's a great place, and Muncie is a one of the things the Muncie Journal does is to show people outside of this community and those inside of the community, and shines a light on the positive things about living here.
How did you end up settling in Muncie? You said you guys got to Indianapolis. How did you migrate to Muncie?
Gosh, I got tired of moving around. I was always the new kid. New schools all the time. I guess it's kind of like being in a military family. They move a lot too. But that was kind of hard on me, and I'm very quiet usually because of growing up. I was the new kid. And sometimes in a small town, that's a cool thing. The new kid is a cool thing. But when you get into some of the larger school systems, it was difficult. So when my folks moved back to Indianapolis, I had just gotten accepted to go to Ball State. And at that time, they were going to move to Kansas City again, and I said, "No, I'm going to Ball State. I'm not going out there. I'm staying here." So, the funny thing about that though is, I had to live off campus for the first 6 months because they didn't have enough room in the dorms. So once again, even though I was going to be just like everybody else, when I moved back into the dorm after 6 months, everybody had friends with everybody else. I was new again.
You were the new kid again.
Yeah.
What made you choose Ball State?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
What did you study at Ball State?
Journalism, advertising.
Okay. I know it's a great journalism school.
Yeah. So I got hired out of college when I was a senior. Didn't finish my degree back then, but I went back in 1997 and did a final semester and got my degree from Ball State.
What did you get hired to do out of your senior year?
I got hired at Ball Hospital. Great experience. I spent 21 or 22 years there. Worked in the AV department first, then got into marketing at the hospital. I started 2 DBAs of businesses. One was called Showcase Studios, where we did AV work for local companies. And then I started another DBA at Baltimore Hospital called Creative Directions, which did medical advertising for medical clients. And you might think that that's kind of weird, but back in the day, there were hospitals were looking for alternative sources of revenue. The things that I was doing at the time, there were a lot of community leaders who wanted to borrow Mike to do a thing for their company. So I wrote a business plan and presented that, and the board approved it, and so that's kind of how that got started.
So you've always kind of been on the marketing,
yes,
audio-visual side of
absolutely.
A business.
Yeah.
When did you get into radio?
Let's see. I have been with the radio station here in town for, I think, 7 years now.
Where did the Muncie Journal? Where did that idea come from?
The Muncie. This will be our fourth. We're coming up on our fourth year for the Muncie Journal, and about 4.5 years ago, we met with some of the local community leaders, and there was a feeling in Muncie at the time that Muncie wasn't being presented in the best light. So Steve Lindell, Mark DeFabio, Jay Chapman, who's the owner of the station, and I met, had a series of meetings with the Chamber of Commerce and some chamber members, and kind of pitched this. I created a demo of what is now the Muncie Journal, presented that to them so they could kind of get a sense of what it would look like, what it would do, and that kind of thing. It was met with a great deal of enthusiasm. So we launched on July 1st of 2015, and it's just been a win-win-win project, in my opinion. The community wins, the Wolf Boom radio station wins. I personally win because I just love the job, what we do, what we publish, what the articles are about. The interesting thing about the Muncie Journal is we only cover stories in Muncie and Delaware County, positive stories in the areas of education, quality of life, and economic development. But at this point in time, the top cities in order of the most viewing of the Muncie Journal are Muncie, Indiana, of course, Chicago, Indianapolis, Fishers, Louisville, Kentucky, Yorktown, New York City, and Fort Wayne. And that's kind of stays the same from day to day to day.
Do you think those are, especially like Chicago, Indianapolis, obviously people who probably are from here wanting to keep up on the community?
Yes and no. It's really hard to determine and get granular as to why these people are looking at the Muncie Journal. But I think, they find stuff on Google search about us. Google Analytics will tell me daily what people are looking at and where they're from. I think some of that goes to people that have been here before, but not always.
It's incredible how internet, you guys are like an online journal. My podcast, I have listeners in Washington, D.C.,
right,
Chicago.
Right.
I don't know who they are. I don't know
right.
I don't know of anyone in those cities. So how that got to them,
right.
And like you mentioned with the Muncie Journal, how do people come across it?
Right, yeah. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and the main stories are published on munciejournal.com. But I remember at one point where some of the New York City people were coming from when Majax originally got started. There were people liking and following our tweets that I'd never heard of before, and they were from New York City. And I kind of looked them up to see, who are you folks? And they were investors. So, or investment companies, and I think they were looking at just whatever comes up on the internet. People are looking for investment opportunities and that kind of thing.
Right. Now, Mike, when this got going, did you guys have any companies or anyone that kind of jumped on board as partners or anything?
Absolutely, our founding partners, and we so appreciate them because without our founding partners, the Muncie Journal wouldn't exist. Our founding partners were the Muncie Auto Group, First Merchants Bank, the George and Francis Ball Foundation, in collaboration with the Muncie Delaware Chamber of Commerce and the Muncie Delaware County Economic Development Alliance, IU Health Ball Memorial Hospital, Ontario Systems, and Mutual Bank.
So it sounds like you got some big players helping out, getting everything going.
Absolutely.
That's good. I'm sure they're a huge help and much appreciated.
Absolutely.
When you guys kicked this off 4 years ago, what kind of challenges did you guys come across?
I don't know. It's the great unknown. What's going to happen? We have a beefy server, so that we just didn't know
Yeah.
at the time. And when we launched it, our server is enough that it would get, you could slam it with hits, and the server would deliver our pages. So, but from day one, people were on it. There was a lot of hubbub, a lot of social media activity about, did you see this new thing? So it's gone really well. We've never had, one time we had an issue, but it's in 4 years we've basically been up 100%.
Do you think it helped having being tied into radio, having the people who had the knowledge to develop this website kind of have experience beforehand?
Absolutely. We did a lot of promotion of the site on our radio stations. We made presentations in the community. I just think, I'm involved with it on a day-to-day basis. On a day-to-day basis. It's 7 days a week. We're adding content on there. But it's been very positive, and I think it's a win from the community because the community is responsible for 90% of the content on there. If you go to our Facebook page and look at the photo at the top of the Muncie Journal Facebook page, you'll see 20 or 30 people that I photographed during our first anniversary party. Those folks and many, many, many others are the ones that are submitting content to us in order to publish to the Muncie Journal. We don't publish everything, but a lot of it is user-generated content that comes to us.
How do you guys go about deciding, hey, this story looks really interesting, we should cover this one, or receiving submissions, going through them? How's that process work?
Okay. Every day we get submissions that are sent to Muncie Journal at wolfboom.com. There is a how to submit a story suggestion link on the front page of the Muncie Journal that's been there since day one. They really need to be in the areas of education, economic development, or quality of life. The quality of life one is like the big content bucket. There's a lot of things that
Almost like human interest type stories.
Well, a lot of it is what the nonprofits are doing. I don't really know what those folks did prior to Muncie Journal being live. So much of our content comes from them and what their stories are and what they're doing and what their funding needs are. And before the MJ started, I don't know what those folks did to get their message out.
Yeah, I moved back. I went to college in Findlay, Ohio, and I moved back here in 2010. And to me, at the time, the town had more of a negative atmosphere around it, cloud of negativity around it, I guess. And it seems like I'm sure a large in part to you guys, that there's a lot more positive. And maybe it's just me seeking more positive people.
Well, I think there's always been positive stories here. They just haven't had a light shined on them. And that's what the Muncie Journal does. We shine a light on the many, many good things that folks in this community do. So we don't take credit for that. We're just offering a venue to illustrate some of those things.
Right. How much growth have you guys seen in over 4 years?
Substantial. It's growing every day. Last year we had a 30% increase in our viewership. We're up to, 324,790 users.
Wow.
And you think about the population of Delaware County, certainly those were not that big.
I say, what's Delaware County, 100,000?
Yeah, I think 120 maybe.
120.
But, some of these other views are coming from all across the country. I got a Facebook page like this morning from a guy in Connecticut. And there again, why is this guy liking the Facebook page from county in Indiana?
Yeah, I'm proud to be from Muncie. I love this city, but I'm not seeking out a 70,000 population city in Iowa to look up and learn about. So yeah, it is weird how people come across it.
Sure, it's amazing, and I'm kind of a statistics nut. Since Google Analytics is on, I'm holding up a phone now. It's on here. The first thing I do in the morning is, is anybody looking at it? And what are they looking at? Every day I do that.
Yeah.
5:30 in the morning. And at 5:30 in the morning, every day, there's like 200 people that have already looked at stories. Not necessarily the ones that are newest, but maybe something we ran 6 months ago or a year ago. And it varies every day, but it's consistent.
When you guys started out, did you guys have to go seek stories, or were the submissions pretty immediate?
No, it was immediate. I do not have a problem with content. I'm shocked at how much content there is, how much is going on in Muncie. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. So there's never been a day when I go, oh, what am I going to run today? That has never happened. Like, again, I said, most of it comes from our community, but I write a significant amount of articles myself, and that keeps me busy. So one thing that's interesting is I met with Steve Lindell yesterday for about, 25 minutes, maybe a half an hour meeting. After that meeting, I looked at my phone. I had 30 emails that had come in. Some of them were from the community, but a number of them are from out of the community. I get stuff every day from places all across the country wanting me to publish their information in the Muncie Journal.
Yeah. How many entries do you guys do? Do you do one a day, or so many a day, so many a week?
Varies.
Yeah,
it varies. We do one feature every day that's up on the homepage as a feature with a photo. And some days we might have 10 articles, some days 5 or 6, some days, one or two. It just varies. If I'm out writing, if I have to write a story that I'm working on, I'm not publishing as much content, so I need time to do that and go.
Now, these submissions, do some people write their own story of what they're doing and send it? Do you guys edit it, or do you do all the writing?
No, I don't do all the writing. If somebody sends me a content piece, I'll read it and I'll edit it. This is kind of a different thing than radio. Back when I was in sales and you'd write copy, you could make as many misspellings as you wanted to and that kind of thing. And you read that back, it's fine. You're reading it, you're not seeing the spelling and stuff. But the Muncie Journal is very visual, so you have to be very careful about the spelling. Does it look right? Or if you italicize something, is it bumping into another letter? And there's formatting stuff. So we spend time cleaning up a lot of stuff. But to more directly answer your question, if somebody sends me content, here's a submission. We require a photo with everything, so they have to send me a picture. And if they don't have a picture, they go to the bottom of the pile. A suggested headline, sometimes we'll change that, and what's happened with the body of the story.
And the picture, I'm sure, just because this is an internet site, just for that visual. I mean, it's not like picking up a newspaper where you just read content.
We require a photo. Every story we've published, and we've published thousands and thousands of stories, they all require a photograph.
Gotcha. I can definitely see that. Do you remember the first story you guys published?
Yeah. Hey, the Muncie Journal just launched today. That was the story.
That was the first story on yourself?
That was the story, yeah. So there's been a lot of other memorable things. We've done thousands of articles, but the largest one by far so far in our 4 years was the announcement of the Fresh Time store opening on McGalliard.
Really?
It just went nuts. I didn't know there was so much interest in that store, but there were jobs associated with that. So yeah, that was a very popular one.
What are some of your favorite stories that you've covered?
There's so many things. Last month, we published an article about tips on dealing with the polar vortex. It got very cold here. That one just went nutso. That was shared all over social media and through the Midwest where it was cold.
So it was freezing that stretch.
It's like, it was weird. Every time I would check the analytics, every hour it would go up 100. And it did that for like 5 days in a row. So that was an interesting one. Let's see. At Christmas time, the Muncie Police Department does some really neat community engagement things with the community. And at Christmas time, some of the officers get in their vehicles cruise around Muncie, stop and give Christmas gifts to kids. And I followed them one day and videotaped them as they, did that. And that one went crazy too. That was huge. Right now, we are doing what we call a special section, which is what we call our virtual home show. And those are always very popular special sections. Basically, in 2013, they used to have a real home show, a literal home show in the Horizon Center, and they stopped doing that for some reason. So to kind of pick up the slack there, we started publishing a virtual home show to Muncie Journal, and we're in the process of creating that and working with that right now.
Where do you guys want to take this? I know you mentioned your growth has been substantial. What do you see the growth and future of the Muncie Journal here in the next couple of years?
Well, I think there's always room for improvement to anything. On the other hand, I'm kind of reminded of a famous George Bush quote where he said, "Stay the course, 1,000 points of light, stay the course." That's what we're doing. We are shining light on positive things. And the Muncie Journal works well. So I think new features will add. I'm meeting with Jay Chapman next week about some new content ideas he has. So, we certainly have the infrastructure in place. We have the viewers. We have the demographics that are really across the board equal. So we're hitting each age group pretty much equally. So I think the project as a whole, the community is very supportive of it. And I think it's all, at this point, this is going as good as we could have hoped.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the content. When you have unlimited content like you guys seem to get, the story writes itself.
Yeah, it does. And there are so many things. There's a lot going on here. Technically, one of the things I've been working on, and it works, it just doesn't work to the level that I want it to, is there's a large interest in the Alexa devices, to talk and read. All the radio stations, you can ask Alexa to play the radio station live, and they're all on board with that, and those are working. But I want Alexa to read out loud Muncie Journal stories. That does work right now, but I'm only getting Alexa to read an excerpt, not the whole story. I got to fix that, and I'm not sure where the error is, but
I'm sure
we'll get to that at some point.
And I'm sure once you get that going, people can just sit there and.
It's great for me because I'll ask Alexa to read a story, and I get to hear the story. If there's something that doesn't sound right, I can go back in and change the article. So it's kind of a proofing thing.
Yeah, having someone proofread your work. Now, it sounds like this Muncie Journal takes up a lot of your time. Do you have time for hobbies and doing stuff outside of work?
Sometimes it doesn't feel that way, and that's my fault. You have to, I find that I have to plan to look forward to something to do, trips and things, and just time away from work. I need to be better at that. But we were talking about music at the beginning. One of the goals I have is to spend some more time creating music on my synths. I got one a couple years ago, and it is so deep and it's so difficult. It's not intuitive. So a couple of weeks ago, I was looking for a piece of music I had written on my other synth, and I thought, wow, I wrote so much stuff on here. I didn't find a song I was looking for, but I found 20 or 30 pieces. I forgot I did that. That's cool. This new synth I got, I'm not creating as much new stuff. It's difficult, and I can't remember how to do it. So I'm going to spend more time with that.
Did you start playing music in the church?
I did. Yeah, my my dad would have me play in Sunday school, and then they called it, when they did the offertory, they called it the special music. So would you go play the special music? And so I would. And when I went to Ball State, I got accepted to be an accompanist for the University Singers, which was cool. But then I got a full-time job, so I didn't do it.
What instrument? You mentioned synth and singing. Do you play any other instruments?
No. No, just a keyboard.
Keyboard, piano.
Don't sing. Don't ask me to ever sing. Not going to happen.
I'm the same way. I'm afraid to sing. The piece of music you created for me, or didn't create for me, but allowed me to use, was that just something you just sit down and
I wanted to try. Well, that my old keyboard did not do a good guitar at all. And as a keyboardist, well, you want the guitar, and
Right.
just try it. And the new synth had pretty cool guitar sounds, I thought, for a keyboardist. So I thought one day I'd just kind of mess around and see what I could do with the guitar. It's a little squirrely at the beginning, but as it goes through, it
smooths out? Yeah,
it's
that sounds
it's
great.
out,
Like I
it's
said,
out.
I was so happy you sent that to me, and then I was able to figure out.
Well, if you
in my programming to get it to fade and all that, I was
Right.
like, wow, this sounds so much. It just sounds professional.
All right. Well, if you want something different, I'd be more than happy to compose something for it, because that's the goal, is to do more stuff with
Yeah.
the music in the days off.
Now, do you think other than music, do you traveling, take road trips or anything?
Well, if we plan correctly, my wife and I love to go to the Caribbean, and I snorkel and I dive, and I enjoy that. It's really good for me, not just besides getting away from work. It's the act of snorkeling is very relaxing to me. As a photographer, I'm interested in photographing undersea life and that kind of thing. So, in fact, because of that interest and love, I've had a saltwater tank at my home for 20 years, 25 years, and that brings a little bit of that back home to me.
My wife and I, we did our honeymoon in the Bahamas, and then we did a 2-year trip in St. Lucia. So
I see.
Very familiar with the Caribbean, and I
see.
love it down there.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful.
my wife and I got married in Nassau,
Okay.
and that was the first time I'd experienced snorkeling. We went down the street and got a cheap mask and stuff, and it was so great. I mean, it was just, the water was, well, it was like tap water.
It's beautiful.
You
It's
could
so
see
clear.
forever. So after that experience, after we got back, I went and got certified with Tom Leard through the YMCA for diving. I did my certification dive in November when it was like below freezing at Phillips Quarry. And that's actually, I've gotten back at that last summer. You can go to the dive shop and you can go and snorkel in Phillips Quarry during the summer. So you have to pay a little fee for that, but I enjoy doing that in the summer. That's kind of fun.
Which all islands have you guys gone to?
We took a cruise last year, a Bahamas cruise. We've stayed a week in Aruba. We stayed a week in Freeport. We went to St. Martin for a week. This is over 20 years,
Do you have any favorite islands?
If I'm there, it's my favorite island.
Yeah, any of them.
Yeah, any of them. Yeah, as long as the water's clear. Water's got to be clear. Grand Cayman is great. Been there too. That's wonderful.
Did you do the airport thing at St. Martin?
Yes.
On the beach?
Yeah. And had to replace my glasses after
Did
that.
you?
All the salt or the sand blowing right in your face, and basically sandblasting your lenses.
Ugh. If no one's familiar with that, St. Martin, like I said, Caribbean island, the airport where the planes basically land and take off is right on a beach that you can stand there and basically get blasted, or you can sit off to the side. There's a couple bars. It's on my bucket list.
You're 100 feet from the rear of the engine as the
Right.
thing lands.
There's YouTube videos that make me
Yes.
cringe because they get so close and so low. So it's a bucket list for me.
It is. It's very cool. Yeah, it's awesome.
You have any trips planned for this year or next year?
We really want to do something. So after we get the virtual home show out of the way, there's probably something that we'll do. Yeah. And I think just getting it down on the calendar is what does it for us.
Makes the
if we
appointment.
just kind of say, well, we'll go somewhere soon, it never happens. So
Definitely, yeah. Sometimes you just got to plan it and make it happen.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time coming out.
Well, thank you so much.
Learning more about you and also the Muncie Journal. You guys are doing a great thing. It's
Thank you.
so refreshing to see people doing positive things in the community and people covering those positive things. I mean,
Yes.
it's a big reason I started this podcast. I try to have people from the community like you would spotlight. I like have them come on and tell them their stories. So much appreciated. Where can they find you guys? The website and
All right,
Facebook
it's
and all that?
munciejournal.com on the internet. Most stories, not everyone, but most stories we publish to munciejournal.com. We publish to our Facebook site, with the Muncie Journal Facebook site. You can just search for Muncie Journal on Facebook and like us there. And we also publish most stories to Twitter.
Okay.
And you can do a search on Muncie Journal there and find us there.
Mike, I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate the intro music. I appreciate your time coming out and telling your backstory and all about the journal and all the good things it does. So, as always, you can contact me via email at thejakesewellpodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram at the Jake Sewell Podcast. Thanks.